Welcome to Prepper Broadcasting, promoting self-reliance and independence. The views and opinions expressed are strictly those of the host or their guests. Visit us in the interactive chat room at prepperbroadcasting.com.
Bankland, Federation of Bankland, the Republic of Bankland, United States of Bankland, United Kingdom of Bankland. Parasite, a smart parasite, a real smart parasite, keeps the coast alive. Times are bad and times are hard, and minus cash my way is barred and treated like some retard strapped to a suicide credit card. Mr. Banker.
Welcome, Golf Strikers. This is our weekly libertarian talk show where we discuss not only the problems of today but also the solutions. If you have questions or comments during tonight's broadcast, the call-in number to get on the air is 1-347-202-0228. After you've connected, remember to press 1 so that our producer will see that you want to be on the air and we can have a discussion. If you're listening on Blog Talk or any other website that carries a player, you can also join us in our chat room at prepperbroadcasting.com. About halfway down the page, you'll see a chat room. You can put in your username and then ask questions in the chat room as well. So tonight, for this second part of the show, we're going to talk about the Dallas shootings, the Black Lives Movement, the police, the violence, and we're going to talk about what we can do about it. It looks like I got several callers lining up to discuss this topic, and we're going to get with each one of you, so please hold on. I want to get your opinions on what's going on, the whole craziness with the violence and the shootings and the police shootings and the sniper that killed the police officers in Dallas. I think it's a really sad, tragic event. Anyway, I want to talk about some of the statistics that people throw around as it relates to these issues. I think the statistics are really skewed. I don't think on both the right and the left, what I see, I don't think they show the entire picture, and I would like to see the entire picture so we can better understand what's going on. To give an idea, the right will often give statistics, for example, showing they'll say that there's twice as many white people getting shot by cops than there are blacks. And I guess that's true, the actual numbers, but I think the way they get those numbers is wrong. I think they're pulling the entire population, entire amount of white people and the entire amount of black people, and there's substantially a lot more white people in this country than there are blacks. So I don't think the accurate number to understand what's going on. But then you look at the left. The left also shows their statistics that they like to throw out there, and they'll show, for example, the actual percentage of black people getting shot per capita, the number of blacks shot by police versus the number of white people getting shot by police, and they'll compare that to the percentage of population and show that the percentage of black people getting shot by police is much greater. And yet again, I think that's an inaccurate number. I don't think it shows the actual true problem that we're looking at. What I would like to see, because I don't think this is an issue about race, I think this is an issue about socioeconomic status. For example, I would like to see stats that show the number of white people and the number of black people in the urban city areas that have the high crime rates, percentage of white people living in those areas, and what percentage of black people living in those areas are being shot by police officers. And then I would like to look at a separate list of statistics that show the suburban areas, the more affluent areas, where there's a smaller number of black people and a greater number of white people in those areas, and see what those percentages to be. I'd like to see those separated, because I think what you would find in the high crime urban areas, I think you're going to find that the amount of crime, there's, imagine in those areas there's a lot less white people, a lot more black people. I think in those areas you're going to find that the percentage of people committing crimes, being arrested, being shot by police, I think you're going to find that that's proportionate with the number of people, showing that it's not a race thing, but an issue with location where they live, the crime rates where they live, the poverty rates where they live. I think that's what you're going to find. Same thing when you go to the suburban areas and the more affluent areas where there's a lot fewer black people living there, a lot more white people living there. They're all affluent. The black people are affluent. The white people are affluent. I think you're going to find the numbers of black people being arrested, being shot, etc., as well as the number of white people in those areas. I think you're going to find out that it's not on racial lines. But I think what you're going to find between these two groups of people split by socioeconomic status, in the poor communities versus the rich communities, the affluent communities, I think that's where you're going to find the divide. I think you're going to find all of the crime and the shootings and the arrests happen in those, poor areas versus the wealthier areas. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I think the biggest reasons come from opportunity, lack of opportunity. I think what we have, in the poor communities, I've always learned as a kid, my grandparents always told me, idle hands are the devil's workshop. And I think if you don't have the opportunity, if you're not working, if you don't have a good job, then you're going to run into a lot more problems. Whereas when you're working and you've got a career, you're going to be focused on that rather than going out and robbing the local liquor store. So anyway, before we get to the guests, I have a couple more things I want to go over and why I think this is the way it is, why I think that urban areas are being totally neglected for opportunity, and why we have the poverty and the crime rates that we do. Now, what I'm going to say might sound a little racist at first, but when you follow me through, you're going to understand what the observations that I made, okay? I'm not a statistician, I'm not a historian, and I'm not a political scientist, but I am extremely observant, and I drive a truck for a living. I go to all of these cities in America, all of these major cities. I go to all of the states except for Hawaii and Alaska. I go to all 48 states. I've been doing this for 16 years now. And there's something very common that I've noticed about most of these cities. At first, I thought maybe it's just a racial bias and I'm not, maybe I am racist and I didn't realize it. But and maybe I'm just seeing something that's not really there. But what I noticed going through all these towns and cities, all of them, and there's most of these big cities have their own Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, okay? And what I've noticed is common about all these Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevards is the amount of crime that are on all of these streets. You go to all these streets and there's the strip malls with the liquor store and the pawn shops and the signs for the bail bondsmen and the signs for the divorce lawyers, and there's the welfare office, and then there's the prostitutes in the street, and then there's the drug pushers on the street, and they're not all black. There's white too doing the same thing. But I'm thinking, why is it that we have this huge crime rate on all these streets named Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard? I mean, that he was leader of the civil rights movement. He would be rolling in his grave if it were this. And I'm thinking, is this a racial bias of my own, or is it really something to this? And I did a little research, and I Googled this, and what I came with, I'm not the only one that saw this, okay? If you're all familiar with Chris Rock, he had a joke, okay? And the joke goes like this. If a friend calls you on the phone, says they're lost on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, and they want to know what they should do, he says the best response is to run, because of the crime. This is what Chris Rock said, and a joke. And so I go, really, this is the thing. Why is this? Why? I wanted to know why. Why is it that these streets named that way have a high crime rate in urban areas? And so I did a little research, and there was a college student that researched this topic. Come to find out what it is, it's a planning issue. It's a city zoning and planning issue. Comes first, the chicken or the egg? Was it first named Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and then ended up having a lot of crime on that? Did it have crime because it was named that, or did it already have high crime rates? And the fact is, it already had a lot of crime rate in these cities, in areas with streets that are named that way. And as kind of like I don't know what you want to call it, a Band-Aid, a solution, a magic silver bullet, the city planners decided to do is they decided to start naming these streets after Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in an attempt to empower the black citizens in that area, to empower them and give them hope. But the problem is, I don't think they were addressing the real situation. I don't think they were addressing the real issues that caused the high crime and the racial divisions in those areas. I don't think they were doing that. I think they're doing a Band-Aid by naming these streets, rather than what they should have did is improve those cities' problems and then take the streets that are become successful in those communities and name that street Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, where the parts of the city where the races did come together and did solve their problems, and name that after Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. I think that's what should have happened. But then I look at who these city planners are. And these city planners, I'm going to say, are Democrats. They're Democrat parties. And you look at all the high crime areas of all of these cities, and they're all Democrat mayors, Democrat city councils. So, yes, my beef is with the Democratic Party, also with the Republican Party, but for different reasons. But you look at the Democratic Party, since the beginning of their inception under Andrew Jackson, who happened to be a slaveholder, also responsible for the Trail of Tears, forced relocation of Native Americans to Oklahoma. Also, the Democratic Party is the party of slavery. The Democratic Party was the party of the Ku Klux Klan. The Democratic Party was the party of segregation, the party of Jim Crow laws. The Democratic Party was the party of the IRS. The Democratic Party is the party of the Federal Reserve. Democratic Party all under Woodrow Wilson. Okay? The Democratic Party under Franklin Roosevelt, party of Social Security, and the party of Japanese internment camps. So you look all throughout history, every dark period of our own history and our own country, period of oppression, has all been under Democratic rule, okay, and Democratic presidents. That's a problem I see. And then people wonder, well, how did that's the way the Democrats were back then, and now they're here trying to help the poor out in these areas. And I go, no, they're not there to help minorities. They never have been. They never have been there to help minorities. You go back to the 1930s, and there is a guy, and I'm going to give you his name, and you can look up this guy. Let me go back to here. This happened in the 1930s. A Democrat, influential Democrat named William Jennings Bryan. He blurred the party lines by emphasizing the government's role in ensuring social justice through expansions of federal power. He wanted to grow the welfare state through federal power across the country. And this was during the time of the United States winning the West. As new states in the West were getting admitted into the Union, the Democrats learned a new strategy that they could grab that voting bloc of new people who are mostly poor, white and black and everything else, grab that voting bloc by promising the welfare and the social programs and the government benefits. They learned that for the Democratic Party, this party of oppression all throughout history, could grab that voting bloc of all these new voters by offering them basically free stuff. That's what it's about. It's about buying votes. The Republican Party, they've always been about big business, crony capitalism, helping the railroads out, helping the utilities out as they got established countrywide. But as the Democrats gained control of the poor votes, the Republicans realized they lost that battle. And they started becoming more towards limited government. Basically, they didn't have any choice anymore because the Democrats had already won the big government, part of politics. Anyway, that's what I've come up doing research in understanding the reason why these neighborhoods in these cities have become so impoverished is because of the generational welfare that they're on. Its welfare is extremely addictive and hard to get off of. It goes on generation to generation to generation, and people that are on welfare have a very hard time moving out and getting off of that. And so I think that's where the crime starts, and that's where it fosters, and then goes on from there. You get into a vicious cycle between minorities and the police that are trying to control that crime, and it just grows and it spirals into what we have. Anyway, we've got several callers on the air, and I'm going to start bringing callers on and get your opinions on what you think has caused the situation that we're in and why we have such an issue, division still to this day between blacks and whites in the police. So first I'm going to bring on Alex. Alex, you're on the air. How are you doing?
How you doing?
Great to have you on.
I'm on. Thank you. Okay, as far as you were talking about making big promises to the disadvantaged and especially the minorities, the Democratic Party has had a specific strategy to do that since the 1930s. The idea is you promise them a lot, give them a little, make them want more, but don't give them the opportunity to gain more of what they want. Keep them dependent, and they will always vote for you. That's the way the Democratic Party is doing things now. As far as police brutality or the problems between the police and blacks in the inner cities, I was a New York City cop for 16 years, and I spent a lot of time ducking bullets and fighting in blackouts, and it's something that happens with mob mentality. You get an agitator in there, which the Democratic Party loves to do, a professional who knows how to stir up some people. Then he stirs up more people, and it becomes like a virus. It grows, and it grows, and it grows. And the people who start participating in it, they actually aren't even thinking. They're just rioting because everybody else is, and they want to do it too. So that's why the Democratic Party is basically in the large cities, on the two coasts, they rule the roost, and it's because they have set that up for so many years that now it's just become an endemic thing. It's rote. They do it just without even having to think about it. And if you'll notice, the big politicians in Washington, most of them, they worked their way up in the Democratic Party, and a lot of them are from either the East or the West Coast, and that's the way they are working. And they're going to continue to do that until finally we wake up, okay? That is, those of us who want limited government, who want the liberties that the Founding Fathers gave to us. And unless we start agitating for that, unless we start working towards it and talking to the people that think that the Democrats are the ones who have the answer, unless we start convincing these people, we're going to get nowhere. And we've been on a very slippery slope for about 40 years, and if Hillary Clinton gets elected president, we're going to go over that cliff.
So your time as being a police officer in New York City, were you primarily patrolling in areas where people were, in poor areas, in poor neighborhoods, or were you in more affluent neighborhoods, or both?
Most of the time, I spent my time in New York City in the Latin ghettos. I am Puerto Rican, and since I speak the language, that's where they like to have me. I spent my time in Spanish Harlem or the South Bronx. Every now and then I got to work in an affluent area, but it was rare. So that's why I spent most of my time in those places.
So, the left likes to always say that minorities are being disproportionately, arrested for crimes and victims of police brutality. And my argument was I don't think it's based on race. I think it's based on, socioeconomic status, more often happening in poor neighborhoods than affluent neighborhoods. That if you were to do the statistics based on population in a particular affluency or lack of, like in a poor neighborhood, are you going to find that, in your experience, would you find that, even being in a Latino, you said Latino or was it Puerto Rican?
Well, that's what a Puerto Rican is a Latino, just like a Cuban is, or a Dominican, and so on and so forth.
So I'm sure you probably didn't have a lot of black people there and probably not a lot of white people there, but out of the white population that was there, did you find, in some of those ghetto areas, did you find that the numbers were pretty much proportionate for the ones that got arrested with the actual population? So if you had 10% of the people there are white, is it 10% of the white people also being arrested? And, is the amount of arrests and crimes proportionate for the amount of race in that area?
No, and I'll tell you why. There were very few whites in these ghettos. We also had, there was a large black population. Those two areas, very large proportion of Latinos and a large proportion of blacks too, and very few whites. In fact, most of the neighborhoods that were the ghettos now, once upon a time, they were all Irish neighborhoods. And over the years, the Latinos started moving in and blacks started moving in because they had no place else to go. And those areas were not expensive to live in. Okay, as far as crime in those areas, almost all the crime was committed by blacks or Latinos, but that's because that's where they lived, and most of the victims were blacks or Latinos.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at about proportionate numbers. So let's say in an area, I don't know what you said very few whites, but I don't know what the actual percentage is. Let's say it's 1% of the population is white, and maybe 60% is Latino, and 39% black. And then let's say out of that population, let's say 10% of people commit some form of crime. Would it be also 10% of the 1% of white people, 10% of them commit crimes, and 10% of the black people commit crimes, and 10% of the Latinos committing crimes. You get what I'm saying about the actual percentages? I mean,
I can speak to some of that. Okay, one of the things I do know about is things like serious assaults with weapons and homicides, and police and cop killings. As a matter of fact, nationwide in the inner cities, 40% of the cops' killings are committed by blacks and Latinos. The thing is, only about 10% of the population of the United States is black or Latino altogether. It makes 20%. They're each about 10%. Okay? So it's like, okay, disproportionate number of blacks, but that's because most of that occurs in the ghettos. Okay?
Yes, that's
way,
what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Most of that occurs in the ghettos where most of the crime happens is in the ghettos, and the reason why the numbers of those minorities being represented is so high is because those minorities live in those areas. So what I'm getting at is that I don't believe it's a racial division. I believe it's a socioeconomic division, that if you were to go into an affluent neighborhood and look at the black people and the Latinos living in an affluent neighborhood, they're not out there committing crimes. So I don't think it's a racial thing. I think it's more of a geographic and socioeconomic thing of people in those areas. And I think that goes back to what I said before, idle hands are the devil's workshop. If they don't have jobs and good opportunities in those areas, then they're going to seek to selling drugs or, robbing the local liquor store. I mean, what's your thoughts on it?
Well, one of the problems with that is that you have, as I mentioned before, about give them a little bit, but don't give them enough. So you have so many people on welfare or working in really substandard jobs, minimum wage, and even less than minimum wage. And the problem there is, hey, they don't make enough to live on. They have to do something. So a lot of them will go out, well, maybe not a lot of them, but a pretty fair percentage will go out and do what they have to do to put the food on the table and pay the rent and the cable bill.
That goes to the social.
That's
program.
Exactly right. That's what you do. You offer them a lot, give them a little, but don't give them enough.
So these city planners, I go back to the example I made of the Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, is they name those streets rather than fixing the problem in a black neighborhood. They say, we're going to empower you and name your street after, famous civil rights leader, rather than going in and actually fixing the problem, rather than naming a successful neighborhood, a successful minority neighborhood after Martin Luther King Jr. They go in and say, we're going to name this street after your favorite civil rights leader, and by the way, we're going to give you your welfare check. And so what I'm saying, rather than continuing with the social welfare programs and continuing pandering and buying their vote, if these leaders, or not leaders, but these the mayors and the city council and the city planners, if they would say, instead of putting the welfare office on this street, let's put a small business administration office on this street. Let's encourage us to move into this street. Let's encourage a shopping center to move here so that there's jobs. And most of the time I hear that those city planners are blocking businesses, and they don't want an office park moving in. They don't want a industrial area moving in and providing jobs. No, they want to, put a whole stretch of HUD housing complexes in. And that's what I see of those kinds of neighborhoods. I see the city planners building their voting block with the low-income housing, with the social welfare, places, and then allowing the liquor store to build a store right there, and allowing the strip club to move in there, and allowing the pawn shop to. I mean, I look at those strip malls like that, and if you've been around the country and you see them, it's like it in every city. You've got a liquor store on the same strip mall. You've got the social welfare office in the same strip mall. You've got the pawnbroker there. You've got the divorce lawyer there, and you've got the bail bondsman there. Come on, that's a recipe for disaster, that entire strip mall. This looks like that's created to be a perpetual thing on purpose right there.
That's the only thing they've got there. One of the things, go to one of these strip malls, or go to a prominent intersection in one of these low-income areas, and you're also going to find a large crowd of illegal immigrants waiting, doing a shape-up, and people coming in and saying, okay, I need 3 guys today. They're going to do landscaping, or whatever they're going to do, okay? They want 3 guys, and that's where those people go and shape up for work. One of the problems with that is the people that are going in there and picking these guys up to go and do the work or whatever, hey, they are people from affluent neighborhoods or business owners, and most of these people, unfortunately, most of them are whites, okay, who have businesses, who have a certain amount of affluence, who want to get something done, and they don't want to pay the skilled labor that you need, okay? So they'll hire the illegal immigrant who will take the job away from a carpenter.
So they're contributing to the problem. It's almost like they're the drug pusher in that illegal job. That illegal job's a drug.
That's what it's like, and they are just as much to blame for some of the problems that we've got as the minorities or the illegal aliens that are shaping up. They come over here because they think it's a land of plenty, and it turns out to be, hey, man, you're going to break your ass for God knows how long, making almost nothing. And what they wind up doing is sending most of that money back to wherever they came from because their family is there and their family is starving or something like that, okay?
And then that continues to create the racial division between the races. I got to go to a hard break here. But anyway, I'd like to hold you over for the next half of the show. Just listen in, and then I may bring you back in a little bit later. I want to go also to Eric and Red Hawker waiting on the line. So let's go to a break real quick.
TheWonderMill.com, the best grain mills on the market, with the ability to mill several items that many grain mills will not. There are 2 grain mills to choose from. The Wonder Mill Electric. It's fast and gives you a vast variety of items it can grind. The Wonder Junior Hand Grain Mill can grind a wide variety of things that even some of the most expensive hand grain mills cannot, including oily grains, nuts, and seeds. Learn more about the most resourceful tool that you may ever own. See all the exciting things that Wonder Mill can do for you and what you eat at TheWonderMill.com.
Old Dr. Bones here, and I want to know that you're prepared to deal with injuries and illness in any disaster scenario. What would you do if modern medicine was no longer available? The second edition of the Survival Medicine Handbook is over 550 pages of how-to advice for the non-medical professional. Don't forget, Nurse Amy and I have a whole line of medical kits, suture stapling materials, instructional DVDs, and other items that'll help you keep it together even if things fall apart. Check us out at doomandbloom.net.
All right, welcome back, Galt Strikers. We just listened to Alex, police officer in New York City. We're talking about the shootings in Dallas, the Black Lives Matter movement, police brutality, and trying to get to the bottom of what's causing all this mess. What caused it to all start, and why is it the way it is now, and what can we as a society do as we move on forward and try to problems with the racial division, how we can bring opportunity to minorities, especially in urban areas. How can we fix the blight in these urban areas, reduce the crime, basically help the police out to do their job, but at the same time help minorities to get off of social welfare and into their own jobs, careers, and businesses. So we're going to go on to our next caller. I'm going to bring Eric on. Eric, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing all right, man. I'm out here in Seattle, Washington, and I'd just like to start off with all lives matter.
Exactly. All lives matter.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, now, I guess what I want to get into is two things. The first one is, we're supposed to be a melting pot, all of us that come from all the different countries, and everything, and all different walks of life, black, white, Latino, all that. But, especially with the black and white community, man, we don't even get to know each other. Basically what we do is we go there and we work with each other, and then we go home and we socialize people like us. Black socialize with blacks and white socialize with whites. And basically it's a deal where we just have stereotypes to deal with. And, some of the cops have stereotypes of what blacks are like. And, some of the blacks, with what's going on with crime and so forth, sometimes they live up to the stereotypes. But basically what we have to do in America, we got to get to know each other, not as Black Eric and White Tom and all that kind of stuff. We got to know each other as people, as this is Jim and this is Bob, not Black Bob or whatever. So
as Americans, get to know all of us as Americans.
Exactly. We got to break bread with each other, man. We need to go to dinner together. We need to do things, go bowling together, so that we have something to identify ourselves as regular people, not that person over there, that troublemaker or that whatever. So that's one of the problems. But the other thing is, I grew up in Chicago, Illinois. And when I was growing up, it was kind of a gang-infested area. And the way that people are kind of raised in this urban area, which was predominantly black where I lived, there was hardly any whites at all because of the white flight. We got in, they left. So what I'm talking about, it was weak or strong. The way urban black kids are taught is that you're either weak or you're strong. And if there's no negotiation, people either bow down to you or you bow down to them. It's a winner and it's a loser. There is no middle ground. There is no negotiation. So what happens is you get a lot of people with this attitude, and police officers are put in a position of power. They are authority figures over me and you. But when they come across black, especially young black individuals, those people are thinking along that strong or weak. So I'm not going to let the cop be the boss over me, so I'm not going to obey him. He tells me to get down on the ground. I'm not getting down on the ground. I'll do what I want to do. And then you find in most of these incidences that are going on, the black kid is disobeying, and then you got a cop that's really jumpy because, he's wondering if he's going to go home to his kids, his kids at night, his family. So the bottom line is you have a jumpy cop, and you got a kid that will not obey a simple order like get down on the ground. Now you got a situation where there's some bloodshed, and you got some cop that has to do what the police manual tells him to do, but most of black America is not going to look at that. They're not going to look at, what? The police manual is there to protect all of us, because if you have someone that escalates a situation, you have to have a way of protecting not only yourself as an officer, but protecting the public. They don't get that things can escalate from selling CDs to where now it's a situation where there's possible assault on a police officer, and you have to protect the public. So I may have to use deadly force to subdue you, when at first it was just a crime like selling illegal cigarettes. So that's basically what I have to say about that.
Yeah, so I want to get your opinion on a couple of things. First thing, You know, how do we change the mindset of minorities and blacks, especially in these areas, like what you're saying, where these kids, you know, want to be so tough to stand up to the police? How can we go about changing their mindset to understand, hey, the police is here to help everybody, but the minute you start, you know, doing something that could possibly endanger others as well as the officers, that causes that to escalate. How can we show them there, you know, hey, respect the police a little bit and you're going to be cool? Just like, for example, you know, after this Dallas shooting, the social media was just going berserk, spreading this picture of this guy, Mark Hughes, that was carrying an AR-15 at the protest and naming him as a suspect. And, you know, when he caught wind of that, he went and turned himself into the police and turned his gun in and said, hey, what can me and my brother do to help? What can we do to help here? I think if people followed that approach, I don't think there would be a problem open carrying if people or any of that, if people would, you know, respect the police and, you know, get down when they're told to get down. I don't think that we'd have the problem that we do, and I don't think police would keep escalating it as well. How do we change people's mindset?
I think it has to start with what I talked about before. Okay, there are a lot of black people in these areas that really, they have a feeling that white people really don't listen to them. You know, and there's a lot of cases where black people don't listen to white people. You know, they just feel like, oh, white people are going to be racist. But a lot of times, and I'm a black Republican, okay, I find that sometimes I can be in a chat room or on Facebook, and I can make a statement about black this or that, you know, how we feel like we're disenfranchised, like, you know, we need to be more involved. And I just kind of feel like the white participants just glaze over it, you know. So I think we have to find a way for white people on both sides, Democrat and Republican, to engage black people and let them know, hey, we care what you say. Now, I don't go for all this Black Lives Matter stuff talking about, you know, because you're black, police officers are hunting you down. Man, I've cooperated with police that have stopped me. I have a master's degree in political science. I had a police stop me, lay me over a car, and he thought I was, you know, a suspect in a robbery. But because my father taught me to be respectful to police, I respected him. I respected his position. I knew he was doing his job. He had no way of knowing that I had a master's degree, so I didn't get insulted by that. I let him do what he had to do, and once he found out what my personality was, he let me go. But basically, I think it starts with reaching out, somehow finding a way to reach out to the black community so they can trust you and really feel like what you're saying, like I said, not all the Black Lives Matter garbage, but just on a regular basis when they say, you know, things should be this way. Well, actually, you know, listen to what they're saying and actually say, you know, that's valuable, instead of trying to correct them all the time and say, no, what you mean by this, I'll spoon feed you this, and I'll let you know, I'll take care of you. See, black people don't need to be taken care of. Just like you pointed out in your program, it says, oh, well, you know, the Democrats have been just giving them a little taste of something, and the vote just comes automatically, and they're being taken care of. No, we have to get to the point where we are able to take care of ourselves, not separate from the rest of society, but take care of ourselves. And there's a lot of white people out there that can help us do that, but they got to get to know us as people, not that stereotype. We got to get you to know you as people and not that stereotype.
Yeah, well, I think you know, I think white people do hear. I think the white people do hear the problems that black people are bringing up, but I think what it comes down to is, okay, I know about this, so what do we do about it? And I think that's where a lot of white people are stuck at, is like, I don't know how to fix your problems. I really don't. The Democrats are giving you free welfare and food stamps and everything else, and I can't put an end to that. And if I try to openly oppose that, then I sound like the bad guy. I would like to see more minorities start their own businesses and get college education and get careers. personally, the way I'm doing it with this radio show, I don't know if you listen to the first half, we're bringing on different business owners and different entrepreneurs and having them tell their story about how it can be done. I think what we need to do, what white folks and successful folks, people in the outclasses need to do is be mentors to people in the poor communities, not just minorities, but anybody in the poor community, and be mentors to them and say, this is how I became successful. This is how you can become successful too. You can do it. But that's great. I want to do that. But how can we do that when at the same time the Democrats are saying, we're here to save you, the white man's holding you down, and you need to turn to government to help, come sign up for welfare now, and then give them just enough to get by. I don't know how to solve that problem, and I think that's the conundrum that other white people are finding themselves at, is like, I don't know what to do.
I don't either, and, it would be nice if somehow white people could get a hold of a rational element down in the ghetto where they can begin to come up with a strategy to do this. Because I don't have the panacea to do that. I don't know exactly how to do that. I wish I did. I know I'm more of a joke because most black people that find out I'm a Republican, it's like I got 3 heads and I'm a leper, because it's like, why do you do that? Why are you doing that? Because I found out that when I looked at my life and I looked at what I believed in morally, it matched up more with the Republican Party than the Democrat Party, and I'm not just going to go along with the show for goodies, and I don't like the idea of somebody just holding my hand and telling me what to do. But get back to the point, I think somehow the white, people and the affluent black people that have made it need to go down with that message of this is how we've done that, but having an avenue to get in. Otherwise, if you don't have that avenue, you just get tuned out. They don't even listen to you. And brothers like me can't really
I think you're right. I think you're on.
I'm Uncle Tom. I'm Uncle Tom.
I think you're on. I think you're on. I think you're on to something here. If somehow successful black people, successful white affluent people can somehow connect with leaders in these poor communities, in these ghetto communities, can somehow connect with somebody that's got an open mind and wants to hear, and form some sort of meetup group in a community, it has to definitely be a grassroots thing, and then start having weekly success story meetups, kind of like I did on the show, but have an actual physical meetup in a building somewhere where people in that community can come and sit down and listen, kind of like a mentor program. I'm going to teach you how to be successful. I'm not going to charge anything for it because I know you can't afford it, but I want to show you how you can do it on your own. I think it'd be great to have something like that.
Let me give you one more thing, and just kind of an example. Okay, when I was growing up in Chicago, I was growing up, and it was just crime going all over the place. It was the El Bacos, the Devil's Disciples, the Black Peace Only was fighting all the time, trying to recruit us and all this other kind of stuff. But basically, I lived that for like the first from 13 to 19 years old. I lived that kind of life, and I thought that's what the world was all about, this concrete jungle, bullets flying all over the place, going to school, getting in fights, getting beat up, and all this other kind of stuff. And then I went away to college, and I found out how the rest of society lives. And once I found out how they're living, the peace and tranquility that's out there, my viewpoint changed. And all of a sudden, wow, you mean we don't have to have the bullets fly? We don't have to fight all the time? We don't have to, have people robbing you all the time? Hey, this is great. I want some of this. So the bottom line is, if you can get those groups together, you get in there, and if you can go ahead and make some kind of, exposure to what the other side looks like, then you could undermine that Democratic Party of handouts and so forth. You could turn it around overnight because these people they're going to start to see, hey, this is great. Nobody told me about this. I'm in on this program. But it has to get in with somebody that, they can trust you, and then they can go ahead and win the trust of the people in the community, and the Democrats will be on the way out. Because I'm telling you, life outside of the ghetto is great, man. It's great.
I know.
It's great.
Hey, I appreciate it, Eric. I want to bring Red Hawk on here to get his opinion. Eric, if you could stay on the line, and also appreciate if you send me an email. Alex as well. I'd like both of you guys to send me an email because I'd like to bring both of you on for a future show as well. I want to go to Red Hawk and get his thoughts. I may come back to you again here in a minute if I got time. But let's go to Red Hawk real quick. Red Hawk, how you doing?
Oh, pretty good. A little short on time tonight, bro. Anyway.
Yeah, how you doing?
I hear a lot of talking about, what's going on in the ghettos and the hoods and all that kind of stuff, and some of the endemic problems and the racism. You guys have covered a lot of ground tonight. The one thing that, since I'm kind of short on time here, okay, we're not looking at groups and people that are causing some of this, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You've got reportedly on a number of different fronts. You've got George Soros reportedly putting out ads and paying demonstrators, okay? You've got Obama out there slamming police officers for killing black men, inciting more stuff. You've got Louis Farrakhan out there going full hog, gets out there on YouTube, go out there and kill the white man. And you've got Jesse Jackson doing the same thing. Personally, I think what everybody's missing here is the end game.
Well, I think that, personally, I'm going to put my.
I think there's an end game here, not to go conspiracy theorist.
Well,
but I think
I'll put my conspiracy hat here, and I really think that they do want to push us to a point of martial law, and I don't think that's a conspiracy of Obama wanting to become a dictator, but I do think the Democratic Party, under people like George Soros and them that are getting behind and funding these things, I think they really do want to disrupt the democratic process, and I do think they eventually would like to bring us under martial law of some sort.
And you've got the Justice Department refusing to go after, like right down there in Texas. Okay, you've got the new Black Panther Party with a video out there holding AR-15s and assault weapons, threatening the cops in Texas. Okay, and you've got all the stuff on Twitter and everything with Black Lives Matter threatening people and so forth. You look at these cop killers, and half of them have gone on Facebook, for crying out loud, and put out there on Facebook their hatred for cops, pictures of them holding and so forth. They've got to get a handle on the end of it, okay? And game here, okay?
Yeah.
And it looks like, and as I said, I hate to go all conspiracy theory here or anything like that, okay? But if anybody is looking back 30, 40 years, like one of the other people mentioned, okay, one of the former cop here, okay, he knows about violence. He knows about the cameras on the streets in New York City. I noticed the first article I ever saw of every on a major U.S. city covered by cameras was 1994.
Yeah, hey, Red Hawk, your phone's cutting out real bad, but I do want to get.
Okay.
I want to go back to Alex again and get his opinion on what both you and Eric said, especially what Eric had to say. Alex, are you still there?
Yep, I'm still here, and I agree completely with the gentleman that was just speaking just before the one out, Eric.
Yes.
When you were saying that when you got out of high school, you went to college and you found out it was a completely different world, and how can we get people to be able to do that more? And I absolutely agree with you. And I think there are some venues, some avenues that you can take. Like, for instance, if you're in school, if the school happens to be well integrated and not either completely black or completely white or mostly Latino or something like that, what you can do is is you'll find out that the kids, the students in the classrooms, a lot of them they're willing to make friends with anybody that happens to be kind of, feel the same way they do, or that they like the person, or the person is helpful, or something like that. Either way, whatever way it goes. That's one of the things that you can do. And the parents of these students, they have to help their children to go along with that kind of relationship with other people. Sometimes it's difficult, and they might not be able to do anything about that, but you've got to try. Give them that particular hook to get into being able to be friends with other races or other ethnicities. Okay, and that was something that. And the other place that I think of the most is your church. It's one of the most important places where you can have people of other races, people of other ethnic groups come together and socialize and develop friendships, and it's an extremely, extremely important way to get these things done.
Hey, I want to go back to Red Hawk. 1 minute left here. Just some last words. You still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, any last words? We only got a minute left.
Okay. Yeah, I think that it begins with the parents. You have to just teach your kids the value of everybody. You can't discount anybody. You got to let them know that everybody is equal and should be listened to. It shouldn't be a situation where you're teaching, those people are just kind of low rent, or those people are just kind of, not up to par with us. You have to just really express that people are equal. Just like Martin Luther King said, the content of a person's character is important.
Yeah, very, very good point. Like I said, Alex, Eric, would appreciate it if you both could send me a quick email, AmericanPrepper@yahoo.com, just so I can keep in touch with you guys. I'd like really good callers. I'd like to get you on a future show somewhere later down the road. Anyway, I want to thank everyone that called in to listen to this show. Appreciate it. I think it's a really good topic. Sorry we didn't have enough time to delve into it some more. I want to go mention what I did in the last show is there's a new show starting next Friday. It's called the Prepping Academy Fridays at 6 p.m. Pacific, and that's on Fridays. The host of the show is Forrest Garvin, former U.S. Air Force Airman. Forrest is a survivor, instructor, NRA instructor, ham operator, and much more. Be sure to tune in to that show. Also, tune in every night at 6 p.m. on PrepperBroadcasting.com. There's a lot of great shows. Catch you guys next weekend.
Okay. Have a good one.
All right, thanks.
Bankland, Federation of Bankland, the Republic of Bankland, United States of Bankland, United Kingdom of Bankland. Parasite, a smart.
When you don't go to Geico.com, car insurance can seem intense.